Thank you. So welcome Subhrajit and Vighnesh. We have two esteemed panelists here. The session is going to be a discussion, more like a Q&A. I get to ask the questions and the panelists here are supposed to give the answers. So both of them have significant non-traditional actuarial experience. Vighnesh has, I believe, 11 exams, and he kind of switched into risk management, whereas Subhrajit, after becoming appointed actuary, started assuming additional responsibilities in product, investment, risk, strategy, etc. So with that intro, I'm going to start the questions. The first question is to you, Vighnesh. Actuaries are often seen as working in insurance or pensions. How did you first break into a non-traditional actuarial role, and what challenges did you face?
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Yeah. So I think this has been a question to me in multiple forums, that how actuaries get a break into a non-conventional field. And as far as my journey is concerned, it has been a difficult one because of the fact that typically when you go into a I would say a non-insurance or a I would say employee benefit kind of a company, most of the people will not be understanding what is an actuary. So I think only people, what they know is that, okay, they are those people who make that 1 crore salary. Okay, we know that in that insurance industry, there are some people who get that. So, but coming back, it has been quite a challenge to explain the skill sets, the kind of capabilities, which in reality, and the kind of value add which actuaries can bring on table when it comes to asset management, when it comes to banking, when it comes to roles which are on the risk analytics side. So getting a break was difficult. But what I would suggest is that now in the recent past, at least a lot of people, a lot of actuaries are trying to gain their grounds in similar kind of roles. And one of the things which I typically feel is that even actuarial students or actuaries, they should look at I would say dimensions beyond insurance. So what I'm referring to is that having a decent amount of understanding about asset management, what is happening on those side of things, what is happening on the banking side, is something which typically would help to get on that side. So from my journey perspective, things have been quite, I would say in the initial phases, they have been challenging, but gradually the acceptance has come in, and that value addition what comes on table because of having those actual skill sets, that has played a vital role in getting to, I would say, where I am right now.
Thank you. Next question is for Subhrajit. In your case, you found non-traditional roles within insurance company itself. So could you elaborate on what non-traditional opportunities are available for actuaries within an insurance firm itself?
Okay, one of the key things, am I audible? Yeah? Okay, good. So good evening, everyone. I think one of the key things that what we say, what is the typical traits of an actuaries? I think that's we need to understand and then see how that can be manifested and expanded to different roles that actuary can do. The key things is the ability to do analytical ability, right? The critical thinking ability. I think that's the business acumen, the general understanding of the business. If those who are working in the life insurance and general insurance industry, they have a great business understanding, right? And they are also able to see the big picture, what are driving some of these outcomes. So these are really good assets to have within that. And it's not necessarily that means that it should not be that we should be working only to the domain that we are good at, because that capability of the business acumen along with the critical thinking ability to see the big picture should be able to help us to actually shape the other part of the organization as well. And that's where I suppose, what are the key traits that will be required to do that? I think we need to be more adaptable. I think we love to be in a certain way and some protected way, a little bit of adventurous in the sense, it will, and we are good at risk management, but we should not manage too much hedge this position that we don't even get to see the upside. So a little bit of a little bit of taking adventurous positions, empathetic to the others. I think that's some skill that we need to have. We need to see that you need to hear the other voices. Not everybody is always at equal wavelength or equal intellect level with you. You need to understand what is the problem statement. All these things, if you bring in people who love to have actuaries as a partner in almost every function, because the key skill, that ability to solve the problem, remains very innate with the actuarial professions. And I am very glad to say in my organization now the CFO, CRO, chief actuaries, all are actuaries now. So it's and apart from me, and we have demonstrated that this is basically possible if we actually able to understand and appreciate and work with the business. So you have to be keeping your professional boundaries. You need to work with the business, help them to achieve the goal for all the stakeholders involved, including the policyholders and other stakeholders as well. As long as you're able to do that, whether you are a head of operations or head of risk or head of investment, I think you can always do that. So for example, for me, I really love some of the other side because it's at the end of the day solving the business problem. And if you have this right mindset to do so, can-do approach and right mindset to do so, is actually very good to do. So I encourage everyone to live beyond. And honestly speaking, I will take a little bit more time on this question. Today's world with AI, and AI is real, by the way, huh? So it's not a fad, it's real. The way that is happening, 1 year down the line, almost every coding, except 0.001% of the top, very extremely high-end coding, everything will be done taken over by AI. The O-series model that OpenAI is coming up, it's not the LLM. The O-series model that OpenAI is coming up actually are able to solve deep problems. So there are two types. You know, if you know the system 1 and system 2, Kahneman mentioned, one is the LLM, typically chat-based, so it's just exchange of information, but there are deep problems that people are trying to solve through some of this O-series model that OpenAI is coming up, and they are really good models. They take, even some of the AIs are taking 5 days, 7 days to solve the problem, which some of the PhD holders takes time just to do that. So it's not that limited to only LLM oriented problem. The deep problem will be solved, and when they start solving the deep problems, what will happen? There will be abundance of cognitive abundance across the globe. So your cognitive ability which differentiates, so it's no longer a manual change. The cognitive ability that differentiates us should be able to change. So we need to be more creative. So how actually should go? We need to be more creative. I think some of the right brain centric, little bit of showing more leadership capability, little bit human connections. All these things you need to bring and develop as a skill. And whether it's your insurance company or non-insurance, these are the important skill set to develop over the period of time, because this is going to change very fast. Trust me, our period, we had some buffer to some technology. This technology is going to take over faster. So as long as we're adaptable, the best way they actually have done is that we have been able to have a very solid foundation. You are in a rock solid foundation. So you need to plan for a guardrails, that I have a great foundation, I will have some guardrails. Within that, I should be able to operate. But don't be too fixated and too straitjacketed in your approach, because then that will be very difficult. I know that much, I will do that much is not the question, because your career, I'm telling you, your career is going to change for 3-4 times in the next 20, 30 years. So you will only able to survive if you are curious, if you are adaptable, if you have a high learning quotient, and if you are smart enough to learn the new techniques.
Thank you. You've touched a lot of very important points. You know, the skills that actuaries are very fundamental to many different types of professions. You know, the statistics, probability, ethics, modeling, everything can be applied. So building relationships, continuous learning, these things are very important wherever you go. The next question is to you, Vighnesh. ERM and climate risk are growing fields where actuaries are making an impact. What are some real-world projects you have worked on in these areas, if any?
I think obviously ERM and climate risk are covered in the insurance side, but there is a significant amount of focus when it comes to banking. And in my last stint, when I was a part of Yes Bank, I used to handle both these pieces. The Indian regulator, I will only speak currently in the Indian regulatory context. The regulator is very much focused in terms of how banks are going about climate risk. And when I'm talking about climate risk, we are referring to both how transition risks will be handled, how physical risk will be handled. So what we mean by transition risk is typically how your borrowers are going to adapt to the changing, I would say, regulations, the changing norms which might come up. At the same time, maybe physical risk is becoming a quite important challenge. And the real example was what happened in Kerala floods, what happened in Uttarakhand. So what are the, I would say, guardrails that banks have in case they have exposure to such concentrated portfolios? There are quite a few banks who operate in certain pockets in a very concentrated manner. And Kerala is one of the places where you'll have a lot number of banks who have 70-80% of the business coming from there. So how are we going to plan for that? What kind of modeling needs to happen? What kind of capital needs to be kept aside? So physical risk assessment is becoming one of the very important points for banks. That is where I think actuaries can play a very important role, because actuaries are involved in pricing of such catastrophic risk. So CAT modeling, those kind of techniques which are being used by actuaries, they need to be more or replicated on the banking side, which is not happening right now. I think even at Institute of Actuaries, I think because I am also a part of the advisory committee there, so we are working jointly with RBI, with IBA, that how this cross collaboration can happen, where actual skill sets can be used. On the ERM side, I think again on the ERM side, most of the skill sets which actuaries use on the insurance side, they are also used on the, I would say, on the banking side. Gone are the days when people used to talk only about market risk and credit risk and operational risk. Now people are way beyond that. People talk about reputational risk. I think that is one of the biggest risks which banks face. And I think, I'm not sure, one of the banks recently, there was some news which happened. Slightest of negative news and your market cap can get eroded by almost 30-40%. Okay, and that's a major risk which banks have, and that is what the board, that is what the senior management wants to know, that how are we protected against this. Similarly, I would say cyber risks. So still, even in my current, I would just share an example. A lot of cyber events keep on happening on the capital market side. And what is the guardrails we have as risk managers? What are the, I would say, policy frameworks? What are the, I would say, insurance or mitigation measures? That is something which is getting evolved day in, day out. So I think on ERM and on the climate risk side, a lot of collaboration needs to happen between the, I would say, the actuarial fraternity and on the banking and on the asset management side. And I think the institute and I think a lot of people within the institute are trying to jointly solve this and work on this. As far as actuaries are concerned, I think if they have the way Subhrajit mentioned, that I would say that there has to be a more open mindset, that how we can add value on the asset management side or how we can add value on the banking side, rather than, I would say, showcasing that what we are doing on the insurance side. Because that is something which already people know. But what is that if somebody were to ask me that, what is that you will bring on table if you were to be on the asset management side or on the banking side? That problem statement, I think we need to, I would say, actuaries need to answer in a better way, because the skill sets are there. It is only about putting it across and showing that flexibility.
Thank you. I know I asked about ERM and climate risk, but thanks for touching upon the cyber risk as well. Many of you know that SOA and maybe other organization as well has an ERM track when you qualify. Instead of going into life or health or pension or PNC, you can do an ERM track as well. The next two questions are related to the hottest topic these days, which is AI. The first one is to Subhrajit. Actuaries are now working in tech firms, startups, and in AI-driven roles. What opportunities do you see in this space, and how can young actuaries prepare for them?
Okay, I think that's a great question. Very clearly, I think what we do basically, we solve problems, right? And nothing can be more satisfying and elation for us if we find someone who is able to solve problems. So generically, orient yourself to a problem solver, not a that I know this, I know that. No one cares about nowadays about it beyond a point, because they need to add value to the system. And we all deal with a probability, and the world itself is a probabilistic, I call. Everything is about any future decision, whether it's an investment side or the asset side or the liability side or anything about the world is probabilistic. So why don't we think that when the life is probabilistic and there are so many stochastics possibilities are there, why don't you build in our approach itself? And how do build and guard against that approach? I will come to the AI part. How do you build and guard against that approach? Because there are many possibilities, and so you can only create certain guardrails, you can create a foundation, and you can have certain adaptability to maneuver. So basically in this world, you have to maneuver as you go along. You cannot be inflexible and straitjacketed in your approach. Coming to the AI, as long as you are able to solve some of the problems that we identify, if you are able to solve the client's problem rather than saying that I know I can only give you that much, not beyond, or this is my capability, this is what I can do, would not cut the ice. You have to understand the client's deep problem, and understanding the problem is extremely important, not at a superficial level, at a level where you really know that will solve their problem. They will be delighted and elated. One of the things that is coming up with the AI is now called agentic AI. It's called an AI agent. So many of the workflows are through. So earlier there used to be ALLM, a prompt, and they give you some response. Agentic AI does an automation around this entire process. So whenever you're taking a problem statement, if you're doing a startup and something, use agentic AI to figure out how to create a workflow, automated workflow. This will solve a lot of problems actually. Because if you only take a part of the problem and try to solve it, again ask the client to do everything on their own, it will not actually give that satisfaction or that elation that people are looking at. And agentic AI can be really of help. So I know one of the interview, the Microsoft CEO Nadella has said that will replace, agentic AI will replace all the SaaS products going forward, in a couple of years down the line. So there will be no SaaS products, only this will be done through all these AI agents or agentic AI, whatever the case. So please bring in that element in your approach and solutions finding also. As long as you're able to do that, honestly speaking, that will improve your odds of success and providing a better solution to the clients.
Thank you, that was insightful. As I said earlier, the next one is also related to AI, and this is for Vighnesh. With AI and automation reshaping industries, some fear that actuarial jobs might be at risk. Do you see this as a threat or an opportunity for actuaries in general and specifically in non-traditional fields?
I think AI is a very loosely used term. Most of the people are not even able to interpret the results what a AI or what a machine learning tool throws, and that is where actuaries have a big opportunity to interpret and to present it in a very simplistic manner. I think everyone has been talking about AI, what will happen, how it is going to reduce human intervention, the number of jobs might reduce. I think that is something which may happen. I'm not saying that it will not happen, but it will be somewhat at a very initial, people who are in the very initial or in the very monotonous roles. As far as actuaries are concerned, I think there is a big opportunity coming in terms of how to interpret and how to use the AI models in the right way. So how AI models need to be used, how they need to be calibrated, how they need to be back tested. Okay, all those fields are where a certain amount of statistical intelligence is needed, and how those results need to be presented. Because the senior management will not understand what the model is telling. So those things are something where I think actuaries have a significant role to play. In the non-conventional areas, I'll just share one example where AI, most of the trading, I would say, codes which are written for algorithmic trading or for certain are now being replaced by AI, I would say, tools. So there are ready-made tools or ready-made codes which are available, which you just need to replicate, backtest, see if those strategies are performing better, and just do a more of a mix and match. Even on the, I would say, risk management side, a lot of things, a lot of risk softwares are getting replaced by OpenAI kind of solutions. So open risk, open source softwares are coming up where I think actuaries can add a lot of value.
Thank you. I agree with the fact that many of the results that you get from AI, without reviewing and making sure that the result is correct, you cannot use it, right? So it's going to be very difficult to completely replace, at least with the current technology we have. You might have heard of the term hallucination. So I agree with you that it's more of an opportunity rather than a threat. The next question is related to financial services and banking. This one is for you, Subhrajit. Actuaries in banking, investment, and fintech are still a minority. Is this due to some barriers to entry in finance, and how can they make a stronger case for their inclusion?
As I say, when you're getting into a financial service where actually is not very popular and not a known, start with the problem solving. You create an example out of yourself that, okay, I am a great problem solver. I don't have a baggage that I am a certified this, so I need to be given that privilege. And just do and go solve problem. By the way, that applies to the insurance companies also. We love those guys who actually really solve problems. So problem solving has to be the key. And okay, one of the things is that this, whenever you talk about AI and other things, I can rest assured that AI will replace jobs. There is no doubt in my mind. But there will be always a, now it's purely crystal ball gazing. People are still struggling and trying to put a finger on it. But those who are able to adapt and learn through the course and navigate through it will be more successful than today's world. And I'm pretty sure that because you require, at the end of the day, leadership, the human connection, the creativity, the imagination, this will only come from human only. But we only have to expand our thinking. And as long as we are able to do that in any other industry and solve problems, someone will tell you that this guy happens to be an actuary, by the way, he is a certified actuary, has been able to solve so many problems. So why don't you recruit people like them? So people don't take for IITs because IIT has become a brand, not because IIT has started with a brand itself, because people are coming out of IITs have been able to solve problems for everyone around them. So I think we are in a great position to solve the problem. And because I work with the actuary and I have seen in my organization there are many actuaries are there. They are great problem solvers. You need to have trust in yourself, allow for some level of discomfort from coming out of a protected zone, and solve problems. Nothing can stop you, I can tell you, nothing. And I am very bullish the way people have come out with the actuarial profession, the way they have built the foundation, because they have built a very extremely solid foundation, and you can take on any role. Ask Vighnesh, ask him, everybody they are able to solve problems. They don't say that, because if they say now I am an actuary, give me this privilege, that privilege, I don't think anyone would care. So they don't care. And this is not only that, what profession to take, how it will emerge is something that we also need to see and allow ourselves to be evolved in this period. So as long as you're flexible, open-minded, adaptable, curious, imaginative, all these words are new for an actuary, but I think this is the way it has to be. You should be able to navigate it very easily because you have the solid backing and foundation of a technical. That should give you the confidence that I can solve any problem. I think that confidence needs to be there. Yeah, and then I think any industry it's a matter of point.
Wonderful. How are we doing on time? We have some time. Okay. So maybe I'll do 2 more questions and then we'll open up. Okay, wonderful. So the next one is for Vighnesh. For actuaries considering a non-traditional path, what would be your biggest piece of advice? What step can they take today to explore opportunities beyond insurance?
I think I'll try to cover 2 industries beyond insurance. One is the banking industry and one would be the asset management or the capital market. And these are 2 industries where typically I've spent a decent amount of time in my career. I think actuaries need to do a little bit of understanding of how banks or a banking balance sheet, I think very basics, because generally when we meet actuaries or we interview actual students, they are very good with the statistical skill sets, that there is no doubt about it, but the basics are a bit missing in sense how banks work. What are the basic banking products? I understand that such kind of concepts are not covered as a part of the curriculum, but typically a little bit of a reading helps there. Similarly on the asset management side. So let's say if you're talking about asset management, and if I were to put a question that, okay, what kind of statistical skill sets can actuaries add on the asset allocation side? So some kind of a thought process that what can be done, what kind of, because a lot of factor modeling, a lot of statistical modeling happens on the asset management side. So I think that a little bit of an understanding about the industry needs to be there. Obviously, that will only come when people get into the industry or maybe they are well read about the industry. So it's more like a chicken and egg problem that till the point I don't get a break into the industry, how will I get to understand that how that industry functions? But I think that is something where a little bit of a reading needs to happen, because that is what is stopping most of the actuaries into getting into that industry. Is that how will I know about the industry till the point I don't get into it? I'll just share one example that we had asked one very generic question to one of in one of the interviews to one of the actuaries is, or actual students, was how does the insurance balance sheet differ from a bank balance sheet? Just that was the one question, and if that is answered, it is done. And I think that student was very prompt in answering in a very basic sense that how it differs. We are not interested in knowing what products and the nitty-gritties, but of how a bank balance sheet works and how insurance. And if that is done, and we hired that person only on the basis of that. So statistical skill set is fine, but a little bit of flexibility, openness, what is happening on the other side of things, that helps a lot. Because people are not expecting on day one that an actuary should know that, okay, how would a bank liability balance profile look like or bank asset profile look like, because that is what even we understand. But some kind of, I would say, little bit of a understanding helps.
It's great to hear that your organization is hiring actuaries in non-traditional roles.
So I think so in my previous organization, so not in the current organization, so we have gone ahead with recruiting actuarial students, obviously in data analytics and risk analytics kind of roles. And I think that way things are opening up on the banking side.
One more reason you were the right person for this session. So the last question to you, Subhrajit, it's related to career growth and leadership. Do non-traditional roles offer faster growth compared to traditional paths? Have you found greater opportunities for leadership and strategic influence outside the actuarial spectrum?
Okay. Non-traditional roles will give a lesser competition here. Actually, there is a more competition. So, jokes apart, because if you are again, if you are competing against people, if you are able to demonstrate that you are able to bring in more value, then obviously your growth curve will happen. But as I say, it comes with a certain behavioral traits, which I already explained. There are two things. I read a book called Range by Epstein. It talks about generalist and specialist. So this is a perennial debate. What is more important, specialist or generalist? The specialist has a particular, if you play golf or if you play chess, the rules are very set. There is a certain way you can, and there is finite limitations, and the rules are very clear. In real world, the rules are not so set. What do you call it? It's very evolving, it's very changing. So the moment you move into a real world, you have to move in from a typical specialist an approach to a little bit of generalist approach. And especially in today's world, you have to learn and understand a few things about what's happening around the world, so that you will be able to add more value in the system. So whether it's a generalist or specialist, I think the best are those who had something to be fall back on the specialist and then moving on. So jack of all trades and master of some is the way to forward, not none. So if you have an actuarial understanding and solid foundation and then understand the other nuances, then you'll be able to do that. So that way, a generalist approach, because if you, because as I say, it's gonna be changing. It's an immense opportunity, but we need to grab the opportunity. As long as we'll be able to grab the opportunity, as long as we have the right mindset to do so, and that will give us a lot of career, not only career growth, you will also able to see the leadership. The one thing I would like to end, that whenever you are thinking about leadership and going approach, actuaries have a great eye for detail, but sometimes it's important to zoom out and see the big picture also. Big picture not only about the organization you are working, about yourself and around the world that is evolving. And some of this generalist mindset will help this to see the bigger picture. The moment you are seeing the bigger picture, the constraints are limited, because we sometimes impose constraint on us. So hopefully you will be able to see bigger picture and see that. With that, I end.
Thank you very much. Can we open up for audience questions?
So I understand there might be many opportunities in the banking for the actuaries, but what I have experienced about this is I think the resume doesn't reach the right person to appoint an actuary. So, so if resume reaches, then they will definitely recognize that this guy is a problem solver. But that's the biggest problem. I mean, when in my previous job profiles, uh, me myself has hired an actuarial student in the IT business analyst. So, but again, the problem is it should reach the right person. So, any opinions about that?
No, I think fully agree to that. To be very honest, even in my previous organizations, even the risk officers who are the CROs or who manage the risk functions, they have not been able to appreciate that what an actuary does. So they have given, when I have approached them that we are looking to hire people with an actuarial background, and they have given answers like, we don't understand, why not get a MBA from an IIM, or why not get a CFA or an alternate, I would say, professional certificate. So that is a question, or that is the problem statement which is there. The only way this can be handled is obviously once some people get into those domains and then they start getting more and more people introduced. More importantly, it is more about doing some kind of, and that is what where we as a part of the institute are also trying to do, is that do cross collaboration between industries. And that also starts with doing cross collaboration with the regulators. So let's say if RBI were, we do some cross collaboration with them, we do cross collaboration with IBA, which is the Indian Banking Association. That will start the ball rolling that, okay, there is a fraternity who is very much specialized, having a very detailed understanding about statistical or analytics, and why not take use of or make use of such talent on the banking side. So that's a slow process. There's no single answer to that. But I think the institute is doing quite a few things on this. And I think we as actuarial fraternity also need to do our bit in terms of going outside the, I would say, where we are just portraying ourselves to be on the insurance side. I think that is, we also need to present ourselves that we are available on the banking, on the asset management, or any other, be it on the fintech side. We have all the skill sets. So
Yeah.
that will take time. Sorry.
Absolutely. There is no magic one. It will not happen just like this. It is a slow burning process, and you all need to do. Institute cannot do on its own. So, for example, in my group now, if you talk about actually, everyone knows. And it comes with respect and ability to, they know they will be able to solve problems. So we all need to evangelize. It's not, we have to be a little bit of, cannot think about only ourselves. We need to evangelize the profession and see that what the value we will be able to bring in. And if we all do the work, rather than confining ourselves to doing only the actuarial work, it should enhance, and it will happen over a period of time. But there is no shortcut to this. It's, and like anything in actuaries, which I like actually, there is no shortcut in it. Which shortcut is not sustainable. So there is a long burn process, and it will happen for sure. There is no doubt.
Any other questions?
So I'll just give one example, just because we're connecting this, and this is a common problem which, as a part of the asset management side, because I'm now associated on the capital market side, we find a lot of CFAs, we find a lot of MBAs who participate in forums, in active discussions, be it on equity, fixed income, those side. But typically, the involvement from actual community is sometimes what we feel is missing. So I think that also helps a lot of participation on those kind of forums, or those kind of I would say seminars or conferences which are focusing on investment management, because I think actuaries are some of the best investment experts when it comes to, especially on the fixed income and also on the equity side. So these are small steps which help to create, I would say, a linkage. So I think that is something where I think.
So, for example, in your organization, both in investment and corporate planning, there is an actuary, an actuarial student working. It's all about, as I say, evangelizing all of us to make it happen. So yes, it will not reach, but over a period of time, they will be hopefully seeking after actuaries.
Hello. So, Vighnesh, you mentioned about two areas where the non-conventional roles can be played by actuaries. The first one is banking and second one is asset management. So there are quite many engineers who have taken up actuaries and have become actuaries. Okay. I would like to hear from you your views on, like, there are many infrastructure projects which are done on a build, operate, and transfer basis. These are all very large projects wherein the projects are expected to recoup the expenditure over a long period of time, like 20, 30 years, 40 years and all. So do you think that there is enough scope for actuaries to play a role in terms of evaluating the feasibility of the projects or evaluating the profitability, or how soon or how late it will recoup the returns? This is an area where quite a lot of statistics, probability, and modeling can be deployed. Would like to hear your views on this.
I think surely, but the current setup, how project finance or I think the BOT or those kind of projects work is more on assumptions given by certain valuation or I would say valuation engineers or those kind of firms. So I think actual skill set more than on the banking side can help on the, I would say, simulation or on the people who prepare the project report, because there is a DPR or a project evaluation plan which is prepared and which comes to a bank for credit underwriting purposes. I think a lot of things can happen there. Reason that is not happening is that there are no regulations that there has to be a minimum. In certain cases you find that there has to be a CA certified report. If those kind of regulations come in, that okay, this has to be evaluated by one actuary, then gradually those things will pick up. I don't see that unless there is some mandate which comes in. It will be like a good to have things, but it will not happen that it will come to an actuary. So I think there has to be some amount of push even from the, I would say, the institute, even from that certain things need to be validated by actuaries only, even on the project management side. And then it, obviously they will add value. So there is no doubt about it. But the reason it is not coming is because there is no mandate.
Thanks for your response. But do you think that like this is a good area for actuaries to kind of explore or step in and maybe contribute?
Yeah, surely it is one of, I think, because a lot of projects are curtailed or not funded because of not having the right projections. Or maybe a lot of projects go bad because of having the wrong projections.
Yeah.
So I think that is something which is obviously there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I think
Thank you.
there are two reasons that can happen. One is that the regulatory intervention that you require for a long-term project, you need intervention of the regulator, that you need to get an actuary. And second is sustainability. If those who are doing business understand that, okay, adding actuaries will improve the sustainability quotient of the project. Because again, people usually in the project make a deterministic projection, one single projection and some couple of sensitivities around that. Whereas, as you know, the world is more probabilistic and stochastic than a deterministic outcome. And actuaries can keep on demonstrating only. These are all things will happen if some actuaries go there and start advising that this may improve your overall sustainable project, then people will follow suit. One has to make the cut and then happen. I think
the trigger needs to come from actuaries. Like.
Yes, I think so. Sustainability has to, and all of us, as I say, come out of a shell and advocate some of these things and help them to see the value. They need to see the value. If the deterministic projection works them to get the loan approval, which works for them, they will work for them. But if people think about long-term and sustainability, possibly this will help bringing actuaries in. So it is bringing the actuaries and more, it is helping the ecosystem as a whole. I think that as long as we are able to add value to the ecosystem and helping the ecosystem as a whole, it will be much more appreciated and asked for rather than just helping actuaries. I think helping ecosystem is more important.
Thank you.
Right. So I had a quick thought on that. So I work in a consulting environment, right? And in consulting, you would get traditional actuarial work and some non-traditional actuarial work. What we have observed is that some of the folks in their early years, a lot of times while we see folks sitting here and advocating and saying, okay, we want to participate in non-conventional areas, but a lot of times when an actual work comes in, maybe a lot of people are not ready and saying that, look, this is not actuarial work, right? This may not be something that I'm after. How do we bring a change in the mindset of that sort is it that should we start or should we stop saying that this is non-traditional? So because the name of the session is also non-conventional. Should we stop saying that there's nothing called as non-conventional? The fact that you pointed out, it's at its core, it is problem solving, right? Should we take the conversation towards calling it out as problem solving conversation and stop segregating between what is actuarial, what is conventional, non-conventional? How do we approach to change that culture to make sure that it is imbibed? Maybe the problem is not as much as can we enter, but are we ready to enter in our mind to be able to do that work? What do you guys think about it?
I think that's a great question, and I think you actually summarized the entire session today. And yes, I think we have stigmatized ourselves by putting this conventional actuarial or non-conventional, and people might be thinking, and that could be a reality also. And historically, it may have been the case that if you work in actuarials, you get a better pay, better privilege, better something. That's not gonna stay. I trust me. It will merge. I think at the core, it will come back to solving the problem, and those who will be able to solve the problem, and it's not far off. It's not far off. They will be able to. The organization will be able to appreciate that. That protective zone is slowly disappearing. That I will do actuaries, I will earn this, I will go on my career, is not going to stay for a very long period. As long as we realize that faster, it will be good for us. Then the person who is doing both actuarial and non-actuarial will be able to actually valuable more. Because honestly speaking, today I am seeing a problem in my technology system with some product and product related problem. If actuary is able to solve the problem faster than anyone else, people will call the actuaries to solve the problem. Why should they ask someone else to solve the problem? And there is no good work and no bad work as such. Every work is important as long as it adds value to the organization. And that's a realization after a long time that nothing is, and the more you are able to do that, more you will be able to value. And it will happen only over a period of time as we have more such sessions and more such people talking about. And I would see that if Institute organize more sessions which are not, those who are working not within the quote unquote actuarial per se, and sharing their experience would be able to bring some of these things. Some session with the young actuaries, how they are experiencing the other problem solving aspect. Honestly, I hired 2 IITs fresh out in my actuarial department, actually contrary to this. And 2 years they were there, outstanding problem solver. They just learned things. They didn't even write a paper. Without writing a paper, they learned the thing. They solved a couple of years, good pricing problems, and then went to do MBA. And those are. So we have to also look at that. There is no this or that, and so it's just everything has to come together. But it's a great problem, and we need to work together to solve this problem in a long and sustainable basis.
I think the conventional and non-conventional, there is nothing non-conventional. I think one of the questions was on ERM and climate risk. ERM is actually conventional actuarial work. Now it has been portrayed as a non-conventional work. The ERM as a concept started with insurance companies, then came down to overall I would say pension funds. Banking, ERM came much later. But now it is being portrayed as if it is a non-conventional area for actuaries. Personally, what I think something which is missing, and I wanted to highlight in as a part of this forum is, I've not seen a lot of, I would say I've not seen people from the actual background working on the asset management side. Very few people I don't know are working on the quant research or on the quantitative modeling side or on the asset management, or where we are working on designing strategies or designing investment approaches. I think that is because of the fact that people want to restrict themselves to the, I would say, core areas where they feel that, okay, we have a certain area where I can get this amount, this many papers, I clear one more paper, we get more, this much is our study incentive. Why to get into something else? I think if that exploration starts, and I'm not sure if there could be some people who would be working on that, at least maybe I'm not aware. I think there is a significant amount of, I would say, gap which needs to be filled on that side. Because right now that gap is only being filled by mostly from IIT engineers or from engineers from the, I would say, the top institutes. Whereas I think actuaries are much more capable of filling that gap. Even in my current organization, I have not met anyone from an actuarial background who is working on quant research side. We are not talking about anything else, but quant is a very core area to actuaries.
Very good question. Sorry.
I would like to share one thought. Very good question was raised regarding this build, operate, transfer, and what role actuary can do. Let me share my experience. I am basically a cost accountant, company secretary, and now actuarial student. Recently, you know, about valuation, I have completed 2 recent courses. There, you might have heard, there is a registered valuers organization under ICMI.
I see.
And they have conducted course on this valuation parameters, on the advanced courses on the AI tools and all that. When I was attending that course and whatever actuarial inputs as an actuarial student I was giving, I think everybody was thinking that they are getting benefited. So my thought in this, there is a need for inter-institutional coordination. For example, and I think Mehta sir very nicely said, unless there is a mandate, nothing can happen. You know that e-filing, as a company secretary, I used to do e-filing. There is a government mandate that that can be certified by ICWA, ICMA, CA, and all the 3 professionals. And today, Institute of Company Secretary has taken very forcibly with the government of India that CA should be allowed to file the tax return and all that. So these are the mandate part. But my experience is that the institutional coordination, there are the areas where there is a coordination between the institutes. No? I think very good results will come. That's my thought. Thank you.
Should we wrap up in the interest of time? Any?
I have one question from the audience. So just as the last question, let's suppose, say, if somebody also said that the employer is trying to support in the member so that we can start into and move into the non-conventional areas. So let's suppose, say, that people sitting in the audience, we are a group of young people, they want to now actually take an action and start. So what should be that one key takeaway message that you want to give to our audience, or maybe an immediate step that we actually move into action and not just talk about moving into non-conventional areas? Anybody in the audience who actually wishes to start through it?
I think a problem statement, and that problem statement could be obviously on the non-insurance or on the, and the easiest what I can think and which comes to my mind is on the, a lot of problem statements are there on the asset management side. And let's say people start working, most of the data is publicly available. It's not something which is proprietary in nature. Come up with certain models, come up with certain approaches where maybe it can be showcased that we have certain approaches which can give you better returns, better investment opportunities. That has to be presented to, obviously not in a on a public forum, but maybe there are people with whom it can be interacted, and gradually then take it up that why not we getting involved into something of this sort. So an investment approach, or I would say on the climate risk side, come up with some solutions on building certain climate risk models basis what is available in the public domain. So we are not, I would not say that go for some paid databases or go for some paid data. A lot of data is available in the market. Come up with some innovative models to showcase that there are better, I would say, solutions which you can come up with on the asset management side. I think that there is a significant amount of work happening there. And a lot of startups, lot of people who are PMSs, a lot of fund managers who are starting their own things. I think if actuaries can get involved with small stuff, I think it is very much possible that it can expand.
One suggestion from my side would be, you are working for an insurance company, there are multiple problems. We have a plethora of problems. And trust me, I know how many different problems we face. Raise your hand, say that I want to solve this couple of problems. Use AI as your base. So actually, they're smart enough to a few more YouTube videos. It's a great resources. Many YouTube understated, great. You can come up with, as I say, some agentic AI to come up with a workflow system. It's not a rocket science, right? Trust me, we have to come out of your comfort zone. You have to spend a little bit of time out of comfort zone, solve the problem. Raise your hand, solve the problems. You'll be delight to the company. People will treat you differently, and they will say that these are people. And that's where we will be able to solve, not only solve, we'll be evangelize our professions, our capability, and so on and so forth. So don't limit yourself that Someone will not come and say do this, because people are not even sure that whether you will be able to do this or you have an interest to doing this. Raise your hand and solve the problem. There are many problems to solve.
And I just want to add that, that attitude also matters, right? Instead of thinking that, oh, I'm going to do IFRS 17 or I'm going to do access modeling, we have to think of ourselves as problem solvers, right? And every time you do something, you need to check why we are doing what you're doing, right? A lot of the times the interviews just focus on experience. But to me, what really matters is how strong you are in your fundamental skills, right? If you have your fundamentals strong and you have a strong work ethic, you can solve any problem, right? So that is a change in thinking.
Perfect. I think. As long as you fall back on your first principle approach. So don't leave the first principle approach. You have built some knowledge and capability, but fall back on first principle for any problem solving and do that.